Hey, it's Joey for Digital DJ Tips, and welcome to part 4 of how I DJ with stems. In part 1, I introduced you to my concept of the stem loop. In part 2, I showed you what a stem loop map is and how it can be used as a blueprint for all of your stem loops. In part 3, we created your first stem loop production, and now in part 4, the final installment in this series, I'm going to show you how to prep it in Traktor Pro 2 so that you can DJ with it. At the end of this video, I'm going to do a quick demo just to give you some ideas of how you can DJ with stem loops. Let's get started.
Alright, so the first thing to do is to fire up Traktor. I've done it. And then go over to the folder where you exported your stem loop. I've got mine over here, the desktop. And then let's import the stem loop into Traktor. So you can't drag it onto a deck as is because you've got to analyze it first. So let's make a playlist here and call it stem loops. Here we go. There. Now let's go back to our folder and drag it into that playlist. Okay, so once that's in there, right click and choose Analyze. Just wait for Traktor to finish analyzing your track. And once that's done, you're gonna get your BPM, key, and then you can add a rating if you want. I'm just going to keep that blank for now. And now that we've got it, we can drag that on to one of our decks. So let's drag it onto deck A. Okay, now we're going to add loop points. Loop points are cues that engage a loop when you press them. So that means you can jump to different loop points at will without the need to manually press a loop button. So let's set a loop point here at the start. Remember in the last video that we created chunks of our song to be 8 measures long each. That's because each measure contains 4 beats, giving us a total of 32 beats per chunk. The reason for this is because Traktor's biggest loop length is 32. This is the loop length window, and right now it's set to the default of 4. And as you can see, the largest loop length here is 32. This lets us easily loop chunks and jump to them using loop cues. So let's set the loop length to 32. Just left click on the number 32. There you go. Now let's add a loop point here by pressing the number 1, like so. And then moving on to this drop down that says cue, or if you've got something else written here, just make sure you go to this drop down window, left click on it, and then choose loop. And if you press the cue, you'll see the loop in and loop arrows placed at the start and end of the chunk. So let's hear how that sounds like. As it reaches the end, it's going to loop back to the beginning. Okay, great. So we've got the intro chunk done. Now let's move on to the verse. So I'm going to move on over to that part. And I'm going to disengage the loop first. Zoom out a little bit. Move to the beginning of the verse chunk over here. And then I'm going to add a second loop point. There you go. I'm going to go to the cue drop down. I'm going to choose loop. And I'm going to engage the loop just to see if the arrows are placed correctly. And let's play it back. Okay, cool. So go ahead and add other loop points. You don't have to put a loop point for every chunk, especially if your controller only has 4 or less hot cue buttons. So just put them at the ones you'll want to jump around to later on. I suggest having loop points for the intro and verse as we've done, and maybe one for the drop at the very least. So let's go over there right now and add a point. Over here. So add loop key there. Engage the loop. Let's hear how that sounds like. Okay, so that's it. Now that we've prepped the track, we can DJ with it in Traktor Pro 2. Now, there are many different ways to DJ with stem loops, but you basically loop chunks of your song, adding slight variations by muting and unmuting stems or adding effects. And soon as you want to exit a certain chunk, all you have to do is to disengage the loop and the track will move on to the next chunk. And then if you want to loop that before the chunk ends, you just hit the loop cue button or you hit the loop encoder on your controller. There are many different ways to do it. You can even just let some chunks loop indefinitely while you mix in another song. You can check out my performance demo from the first stem loop video to get some ideas. The link is in the box below. And I'll do a quick demo here just to close out this video.
So that's it for this training video and the series on how I DJ with stems. I've got the full training article over at the Digital DJ Tips website. The link is in the description box below. Please hit the thumbs up icon if you like this video and hit the subscribe button if you are not a subscriber yet. I hope you had as much fun going through this series as I did making them. My name is Joey. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.